Good morning and shalom, everyone. Happy weekend. It is the weekend. Hope you get to have a lot of extra time. Hope you have the weekends off and can maybe get a little bit more reading in or a little more of something you want to do. For me, it's actually the opposite. I usually have less time on the weekends because there's a lot that we've got to get done. So I am up early to get this done. Last weekend, I realized that the weekends are where it is the hardest for me to get this challenge done. So this weekend, I woke up extra early so I can get it done, and I'm hoping I can make it through the weekend and do just fine. Monday mornings are also very hard because, of course, getting up early is hard and there's lots to do. But what day of the week is hardest for you? Like when you've been doing this the last week or so, what has been the hardest of the days to get it done? I want to hear that in the comments. And then what did you do to conquer it, to power through? What did you change or adapt to make it work? Like I said, on the weekends, it's trying to find the times that I can do this and be alone. So I'm here really early, and that's how I'm adapting. I would love to sleep in, have a little bacon. I'll have that here in a little bit. But anyways, let's get to reading. We are on day number 13. We're on John chapter 13, and I'm really excited to see what this chapter is all about. And see, in the morning, my throat. So let me get reading, and then we'll chat about it as soon as we're done. Move you closer and let's chat about chapter 13. Well, what do you think? John chapter 13, the Last Supper. We are nearing the end. This is the night before Jesus' arrest and his crucifixion. So, whoa, we are right at the end. So, in Christian traditions, if you grew up in the Christian church, you hear of it as the Last Supper. And it's actually the Passover meal that was celebrated for hundreds, if not thousands of years, all the way back to the book of Exodus, where Moses, God sends Moses in to Pharaoh to free the Israelites that were enslaved for 400 years. And they go through all the plagues, and the very last plague is when he says, please let my people go, and Pharaoh says no. back and forth. And then the last plague is the death angel comes and kills all of the firstborn males and through the whole land. And in order to keep the Israelites safe from the death angel, God tells Moses to have the Israelites have kind of a Passover meal. They are to kill a lamb and have it for dinner that night, and have everybody stay in their homes, and they're to take the blood and put it over the doorway. And so as the death angel came through the land, when he saw the blood over the door, he passed by, he passed over. So that's why it's the Passover. And so for hundreds and hundreds of years, the Jewish people celebrated the Passover. It was one of the festivals that God told them to celebrate every year to remember. So the festivals were created so that we would remember God's goodness, that we would look back and see that he protected us, that he guided us, that he provided for us, just like the manna in the wilderness, all of that. So the Jewish people have been celebrating, they still celebrate it to this day, the Passover. We celebrate Easter in our modern culture. I'm slowly phasing out some of those modern day celebrations and going back to what God actually asked the people to celebrate. Not that we have to, because as Christians we're under the new covenant, and God's doing a new thing. But I think that those festivals really bring my awareness back and remember what God did in the Bible. And I feel like those are even more connected than the ones that I celebrated all growing up. Now, we celebrated Easter as the Last Supper, Good Friday. We celebrated, Sunday when he arose and all of that. So we were remembering, we were doing what God wanted us to do as far as always keeping him in our remembering, and remembering what he's done for our people through the years. So if you really go and study the Passover, this even means even more, because here Jesus is entering right before Passover. And go over, if you've got time today, I would encourage you to go read the other Passover meals, the Last Suppers. So my Bible notes it as Matthew 26. You'll see the meal in 20 through verses 20 to 30. But go before that, see where they prepare the meal they have to go, and all the different things they have to go and do. Mark 14, the meal is at 17 through 26, and Luke 22, 14 to 30. John and Matthew were both there at the meal. So you know that John writing and Matthew writing is actually word for word what they saw. It's there was a huge table with all of them around, so maybe Matthew was at this part of the table, and John actually in verse 22, you'll see it says the disciple whom Jesus loved. He refers to himself as that, was reclining next to him, and Simon Peter motioned to this disciple and said, ask him which one he means. So leaning back against Jesus, he asked. So John has a bird's eye view, like he's basically right next to Jesus, leaning in on him on the Last Supper. And so this is his account of that. Matthew, he might have been at, farther down at the table, but that's his account. And then when you're reading the one in Mark, I believe Mark, he came later, and he was really good friends with Peter. I feel like, if I remember from my studies way back, I feel like Mark is taking Peter's viewpoint, because I think Peter was telling him everything and he was writing stuff down. And then Luke, he comes later. He was Paul's friend that Paul found on a missionary journey. And Luke was a doctor, and he also seems to be a really good investigator. And I think what Luke did is he spent a lot of time interviewing and talking with all of the eyewitnesses, even Mary, the mother of Jesus herself. And I think Luke's is the most detailed because he looked at everybody's viewpoint, got all the information, and then investigated it and put it down. So you'll see the 4 different accounts of the Last Supper. They just come from different viewpoints and everything. So if you want to get the whole picture of that Last Supper, and I love that John shows it to be where Jesus washed Peter's feet. He was washing all of the disciples' feet. I love that. I noted in verse 3, I kind of highlighted in blue. I usually highlight in blue when I find something about peace. And at first, when I read this sentence, it's Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into the basin, began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. So that was a symbol of him being a servant. Like at the beginning of a meal, a servant would wrap a towel around his waist, and he would wash all the dinner guests' feet so that they were clean as they went into the meal. So Jesus was taking the place of a servant. Here he was, later on you'll see it says, you call me teacher, you call me Lord. So he was their leader, he was their teacher, and usually in that case, other people served him. But Jesus became the servant, and I went back to the words Jesus knew. And I highlighted that in blue because that brought him peace. And that also gave him the ability to serve. And I was thinking that is key to us serving and us being at peace, because Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So I was thinking, when I know who God is, his character, who Jesus is, what his character is, and I know that he has control over my life and that he has a good plan, it's the knowing. When I know, then I'm at peace, because whatever happens I know is in God's care. So the knowing is the peace. And then also the knowing how important I am in God's eyes makes me very secure to lower myself and serve. Does that make sense? That's just how it popped out to me this morning when I saw that Jesus knew. And that's why he was at peace, even though he was struggling with the fact that he was about to die and about to go through some really hard times. It was in the knowing that that God had put the things in his control, and he had come from God and he was returning to God. That's also the resting in, when all this pain is over, I'm going to return to God. And that's just really secure to me. I also I highlighted, let's see, verse 14. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. So in our world, we don't wash feet. That would be weird. There are some churches that still do that. But what is washing feet to me? What is washing feet to you? What is a modern day, like what service would we do to do that? So that's something I'm going to ponder today. Like you also should wash one another's feet. So my fellow Christians or people in my path, what does it mean to wash their feet? If you guys have some ideas, tell me in the comments, would it be, I know some people go and they go to a soup kitchen and they serve people food, and they'll do it on the holidays, which normally you'd want to be all cozied up in your own house and celebrating, but they give that up. They serve on something that would normally be something for them, or give up their weekends, or they give up their evenings to volunteer anywhere. I've seen people who go down into the homeless areas and they just bring them sandwiches, or they go and talk to them. Or maybe it's just you're driving by someone and God just says, you know what, pull aside, and I know you have a busy day, but give them some of your time and go talk to them. How are they doing? Or maybe it's a friend that you've seen struggling that you just pick up the phone, or bring them a meal, or I don't know. Give me some ideas in the comments, because I'm going to be thinking about that all day long. Like, what does it mean to wash another's feet nowadays? And I found this verse very interesting. Very truly I tell you, whoever accepts anyone I send accepts me, and whoever accepts me accepts the one who sent me. So I was thinking about like people who are sent into your life. So God must send people that he wants us to minister to. He sends people into our lives, into our pathways. And I was thinking about that. I was hoping that my life application Bible would give me kind of a breakdown on those verses that really stood out to me. And ironically, the verses that really stood out to me today weren't even mentioned in my commentary. So I guess, I was on my own there. I didn't even have anybody else's commentary on that. Maybe if you've got commentary in one of your Bibles on that, let me know. So then, of course, somebody is going to betray him, and we all know that's Judas. You could read the other accounts and the other, that basically you could tell it's troubling Jesus because he keeps bringing it up. I tell you, one of you is going to betray me. It's bothering Jesus that night. And then, of course, John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, is reclining next to him. Simon Peter mentioned. Ask him, which one does he mean? Of course, Peter's like bold. He's like, I want to know. I mean, I'm not gonna try to pretend like I don't want to know. I want to know. And Jesus answered, "It is the one whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." And then he dipped the piece of bread and he gives it to Judas. And as soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered him. That's a scary thing. It's like he suddenly was demon possessed. I think he already had some troubling spirits. And he already was making bad choices. He was stealing from the treasury. He already was making really bad choices. And now at this point, if you read some of the other accounts, he'd already made some arrangements with, and already taken money from the Pharisees. So he already had made those decisions before Satan entered into him. So it wasn't like he was just an unwilling participant. He chose that path, and then Satan entered into him. So Jesus tells him, what you're going to do, go do it quickly. Like, don't waste any time. I'm tired of this anguish waiting on me. Just go do it. The time is now. And then this last section here in chapter 13 is Jesus predicts Peter's denial. And we go back to the thing from yesterday where God had said to him, I will glorify myself, or I have been glorified, and it will happen again, where I was just kind of like, wait, what does that mean? It's interesting that right when Judas leaves, and he says, when he was gone, Jesus said, now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself and will glorify him at once. There's a lot of glorifying, but it's connected to the evil that Judas is about to do, which is so interesting. And we know that this was God's plan all along, and he allowed Satan to do this. God is in control. But it's interesting that in something so wicked and horrible, that's when God is glorified. So even the things that you think are the worst in your life can be the things that can most glorify God. I don't know. Tell me in the comments if that makes sense. And then, of course, the sadness. My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. A new command, and this is a very important verse, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Now, this is a section that a while ago I was studying the word love, and I realized as we enter this section, the word love is just over and over and over and over again. If you want to know what love is, true love is, as we enter this section and go into 14, underline every time you see the word love, and you are going to be amazed at how many times the word love is used. So do that, especially as we enter into chapter 14 tomorrow. And then, of course, Simon Peter, he's always the one, Lord, where are you going? I want to go with you, you know? And then he says, you can't not follow, but you will follow later. And, of course, Peter, he's so excited all the time. Lord, why can't I follow you? I will lay down my life for you. Peter is always jumping the gun. He is that free spirit. He is that emotions, and everything's on his sleeve. Nothing that goes into his head is ever not said. It just is right out his mouth. And he, of course, Jesus says, will you really lay down your life for me? Very truly, I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And we're going to see that happen, where Peter doesn't lay down his life for him. He actually pretends like he doesn't know him. So we're going to see that. Spoiler alert. But that's it for chapter 13. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in, if you went diving into the Passover meals and kind of researching that a little bit. If you had some time this weekend to do anything, you can come back and tell me in the comments if you do that for the rest of the day or tomorrow. And then we will see you tomorrow for chapter 14, where Jesus starts to do some really intense teaching right before he's about to die. And I am a collector of last words. I feel like people always say the most important things before they know that they're going to leave. And so we need to lean in. And the next, I think couple chapters is all red letters. Jesus just talks for a couple chapters. And so we need to lean in and listen hard to what he's going to say right before he passes away. So until tomorrow, hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope you feel Jesus right next to you all day long. And he's whispering in your ear how special and wonderful you are. And shalom, dear friends. Until tomorrow.